we'll be tackling today is one of my favorite shows of all time, How I Met Your Mother. This comedy soap opera at times follows Ted Mosby, who is trying to find the love of his life. He's a person that tries to romanticize every situation he has with women, which at the end of the day, you'll see throughout the whole series it ends up failing countless times. He has his best friends Marshall, Lily, Barney, and Robin, who follow him along the whole time. Barney being one of my favorite characters, who's just this womanizer, sleeps with everything under the sun. He is hilarious. He's the creator of the bro code. Marshall and Lily, who are Ted's actual closest best friends that they met in college. And Robin is some girl that Ted meets in the first episode. He meets her and he basically instantly falls in love with her. He takes her out on a date. He wows her in one of Ted's early mistakes that he makes, that Ted makes a million mistakes with women, but he said, "I love you" on the first date. Scares Robin away. They end up on and off dating throughout the whole thing, and we'll get back to that in a little bit. But this show really is the jam-packed trials and triumphs of someone's love life at certain times, especially someone like Ted, who romanticizes every single situation with a woman. And really, if he can find a way to mess it up, he does. He has countless relationships with Robin again, with Stella, who was a nurse at the time. He ends up dating so many girls on and off, and usually it ends up being that either it's a right place, wrong timing type situation, or he really just isn't ready fully as a person. He relies on a lot of that relationship to make him as the person, which you can see that's one of Ted's character flaws. He really thinks a relationship is the end-all be-all. He is not really happy with himself for the most part. And I think that's an important thing to know. I think this show gives a lot of life lessons, really, too, that there are times where there's a perfect episode that I always love going back on, where Barney and Robin get together at one point in time, and they're planning their wedding. Marshall and Lily are having their kid, and Ted is all alone. He has a great sequence and a great scene where it's right before he meets the soon-to-be mother, which ends up, we'll talk about later on, it ends up not really being much of the show. But I'll be honest, I love Ted, but he has annoying qualities just like every one of your favorite characters ever. He messes up where he shouldn't have. He says something he shouldn't. He goes back to Robin. And again, that's a big thing I have in a hit towards this show, is that realistically, they build up this whole story about talking to the kids and how you think it is a show about how he met the mother of his children. And it really isn't. It's a love story about Robin. He always comes back to Robin. And in the end, this whole show is designed to just ask the kids permission if he can go date their Aunt Robin. Which in the moment, and again, we talked about this a little bit with Game of Thrones, I don't think it ruined the show as much as Game of Thrones. It was a shitty ending though. Because you build up, you get used to the mother, who was great for the limited time she was in it. The story about the yellow umbrella and the symbolism all the way throughout. And really that invisible string theory that a lot of people talk about, which you can say if you think it's real, if it's not. I'm not one to say. Maybe it isn't, but it is cool to see her side by side throughout the whole series, that they were this close to meeting each other at all times. She was the roommate of someone Ted dated at some point in time. They both had the same umbrella. They both had the same initials in the umbrella. But then ultimately killed in the end when he goes back to Robin, which Robin had ended up marrying Barney, which another drag, because for a whole season, basically, you go through Barney and Robin's wedding, which, oh my God, it's a drag. And at the end of the day, it ends up with them getting a divorce anyways, and then Barney going back to his old ways. So it's, you build up a character development and then you just kill it again. And it's the same thing with basically Ted, Robin, and Barney. All three of them, character developments that just get killed in the end by the ending. I think, although it is a great show, I think all the way until the end, it gives you a lot of good lessons, but that whole end point is where it gets killed. This show, to me, is something you can put on in the background, like The Office, and also just listen to a lot of shows where they do give you a lot of great life lessons, a lot of things you'll run into as an adult, especially at my age now, where you're getting out of college and you can see in that dating life situation as well, and trying to not make the same mistakes as Ted, where he just says, "I love you" on the first date, which you don't do, obviously. But the thing is like with this show, it is another show that just has a pitfall of an ending. But this one is where, instead of Game of Thrones, where the writers were just saying, fuck off, this show is built for that ending, which is conflicting in my head. I really think maybe if they would have built Barney and Robin's wedding a bit more, and how they had a divorce and all this, maybe a little bit better, maybe the ending would have been okay. I still don't think so. I think this show is something that's looked back at fondly. I tried to do How I Met Your Father, which was terrible. They probably should never done it in the first place. I tried to watch it. It was awful. But looking back now, I think, again, I keep going back to it, I think How I Met Your Mother is a show that really gives you a lot of good lessons in life, with friends, dealing with relationships, dealing with yourself, in trying to find that right partner for you, which Ted does in the end. He finds a great partner, and unfortunately she passes from cancer. But he found that love of his life. And again, at some point, he thinks he had multiple loves of his life, which you can't. And in this show, you definitely can, I guess. So he is going back to Robin, and again, he does, and you're just split. It's a great show, but in the end, I think it's another one that, with like a few episodes left, you're, where is this going? And then it just pitfalls, which is one of those things where you look back and you go, that was a great show, but if the ending would have been like this, maybe it would have been a little bit better. Overall, I think, me personally, I still look back at the show with fond memories. I turn it on every once in a while. Again, I'm watching it again. I've been watching it. I think it's something I always seem to go back to. I really enjoy the show. But again, there is still a little bit of bitter taste in my mouth, and a lot of people's mouths, with the ending. And I think it could have been written better. Maybe he could have just stayed with the mother and Barney and Robin could have stayed together. You never know. Could have been just a happy ending and not a bunch of pitfalls in the end. But let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you think they could have done better, what maybe could have been done in the seasons leading up to it, or with Robin and Ted at the beginning.